Hello, everyone, and welcome to our For Your Consideration conversation with Hailee Steinfeld for Dickinson. I am Scott Menzel, and today I am joined by
Nikki Fowler,
Rama Tampubolon,
Jana Nagase.
Before we begin, we at the Hollywood Critics Association would like to thank the team at Apple, as well as Ginsberg Libby, for making today's conversation a reality. And now I am pleased to welcome the incredible and wickedly talented Hailee Steinfeld. Hey, Hailee, how are you today?
I'm great. Thank you so much. How are you?
I'm doing great, and I'm so excited. I watched season 1 last year, and I just came off a binge of season 2 right before this.
Oh,
and
amazing.
It's incredible. Absolutely
Thank you.
incredible.
Thank you so much.
So to start things off, were you always passionate about Emily Dickinson even before getting the opportunity to play her?
I wasn't very familiar with her or her work before this, which is why I'm so grateful that what I do introduces me to people, things, material that I can only wish I came across sooner in my life. But no, I didn't know much about her before this show, so I definitely have it to thank.
how did you prepare for the role of Emily with a character who in real life had over 1,800 written works? And what were some of the highlights of executive producing?
Well, as far as preparing, I'll tell you that process was interesting for me because, it hasn't stopped as we continue, with now our season 3, which is so incredible that I've had the opportunity, that we all as a cast and as a show have had the opportunity to come back and continue that preparation process, that discovery process. And it's so fun just to each time come back and discover new things and dig a little deeper each time. But I will say, having, any information, we don't have a whole lot of, known facts about Emily, but what we do have is always so helpful to have access to. And her poetry alone is the driving force of this show, and to have that as reference is incredible reference into her mind, into her, possible physicality. And what's so fun about this show is it's basically just our interpretation of what we think might have been going through her head when she was writing these incredible words. But Elena Smith, our unbelievable creator, writer, showrunner, producer, and director now, is basically my Emily Dickinson encyclopedia. And she was a huge part of my preparation process. Just the conversations between the two of us, we're never ending. And as far as producing, it's been a really, really wonderful experience. And I've had some amazing fellow producers that have walked me through this process. And it's been a ride.
I feel like we can't talk about this show without talking about the costumes. There are so many, they're big, they're lavish. Talk to me about working with the designers, John Dunn and Jennifer Muller, on coming up with the right looks, the right outfits that capture the essence of Emily Dickinson. How many costumes do you regularly change into per episode? How comfortable or uncomfortable were they?
It's funny you ask how many, because we've recently shot something that I won't give too much away, but in regards to season 3, there were quite a few changes. And working with John Dunn, in season 1 was really beautiful in creating, and Jen Muller, creating what this whole story was, right? Because it is a period piece, but it is very modern, and we were, very specific with where we chose to highlight that modernism, right? Through more of the hair and the makeup, a little bit through the wardrobe, but that stayed pretty period. And it is so unbelievably intricate and detailed, and everyone in that costume shop I bowed down to. And what Jen Muller has done the last 2 seasons have been, she continues to blow my mind. And what's so fun about season 3 is we get to see a little bit of change in the wardrobe, because we are a little further along in time, which was really exciting to kind of, come back and switch it up a little bit, but has an unbelievable impact on what I do as an actor, physically and emotionally and mentally, with these corsets. I mean, let me tell you how happy I am to not be wearing that right now. But to have that physical and mental constraint that Emily did, that all women did in that time, and didn't have a choice but to be okay with it, really, was challenging for sure.
Hi, Hailee.
Hi.
You record Afterlife, and how much that song inspired your process to create to be part of the series?
So what's so crazy about this that song was that it was already written. When I went to basically the conversation, the idea of doing a song for the show had come up quite a few times throughout the process of shooting, and then it didn't really become a reality until we had wrapped season 1, and I had gone back to LA to start making music for my own project, and I got a call in the middle of a week saying that we would need a song by the end of the week if this was going to work. So the session that I was currently in when I had gotten that call, I immediately, it just turned into a whole Dickinson thing, and we started writing songs, and I was trying to explain what the show was to my friends that I was writing with that day, and it was very complicated. I had nothing to show them and very little context, and we wrote a couple songs that we, that didn't fully encapsulate what I was after for the show. And I went back into a folder of songs that I had already previously worked on, just to see if I had anything that was further along, and I had Afterlife, and I love that song so much, and I always have, and I always thought it was so special. I just never had the right home for it until Dickinson. So what literally gives me chills when I think about it now is how Dickinson inspired that song felt already, and that was done years before I did this show. So it was just so wild to see that there is this impact I believe Emily Dickinson still has on us today, whether we know it or not.
So the second season explores the concept of fame and the price of it. Can you speak a little bit about that exploration, and are there any parallels between Emily's and your own?
Well, I will say that this season had me thinking more about fame than I have ever thought about it in my life. I would say, unlike Emily in season 2, I have a very healthy relationship to fame, to the idea of fame. But I will say it brought more to my attention about how scary the concept of it is, and how, the fact that it is or can be, in fact, very easily achieved these days is wild. And to think that this is a person who spent the majority of her life wondering what it would be like, because she was not allowed, she was forbidden to feel or even really think about the idea of publishing, of being known, of sharing her work with the world. It's a wild thing to have to have dove into that side of her brain and thinking, would she have really wanted this? And I had a moment where, when right before season 1 was about to come out, we had already started shooting. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Season 2, we were in the middle of shooting season 2, and season 1 was coming out, and there were billboards all over New York City. And it was the most wild thing for me personally, because that sort of thing is just, I can't even describe what that feels like. And I had this moment where I was driving through Times Square with my family, and there was this huge Dickinson billboard. And I thought, I wonder if Emily Dickinson would be happy about the fact that she is in the middle of Times Square right now. It's a really wild concept, but a fun thing to think about, but not for too long, I have to say.
I have a question about Emily's relationship with her father from season 1 to season 2. He seems to soften a bit in season 2, but how did you factor in the event that happened that was really graphic with him into the portrayal of Emily and her growth in season 2?
Thank you. I would say the relationship between Edward and Emily is very complicated. They have this deep love for each other. They've had deep understandings and misunderstandings. And obviously this whole world that Emily is living in is, there's a patriarchy, and she is living, she knows that there is no world in which she, unless she gets married, she is under the control of any other man but her father. And they have this very weird, interesting, unique sort of push and pull where Emily loves her father and she wants to feel protected, and he wants nothing but to protect her, and he wants nothing but for her to stay at home. And there's this very interesting, like I said, push and pull, and this sort of toxic push and pull that they have, but there's this underlying really deep love that they have for each other. And I think as Emily grows, she only becomes more and more of her own person. And she, in season 2, has won the right to become a writer and to call herself a writer. And she tells her dad, basically, if you want me to stay here, then this is what I'm going to do, and there's nothing you can do to stop me. And he accepts that, and it allows for Emily to grow, in season 2. And in season 3, we'll see that she only continues to grow more as she continues to come in contact with more and more obstacles in life and with her father. But ultimately she uses it as strength at the end of the day.
One of the best things about this show is that it indicates that young people tend to generally be progressive, whatever era they're in. We don't want to see our loved ones die in wars. We always stand for civil rights and justice. We think that people should love whoever they freely choose to love, and so on and so forth. So what are your thoughts about the show applying those modern day principles, themes, and ideas to the 1800 period piece setting? And what can you tease us about what other modern day principle, themes, and ideas that we can see in season 3?
Well, you mentioned some of them, actually. I think it's so wonderful that this show has all of these, sometimes scary because they're so right on, these parallels that we get to see. I've said this for a while now, but I really do feel like this show serves as such a beautiful reminder of how much work we've done and how far we've come, but how much work is left, and there's quite a lot of that. To see a show that takes place in the 1800s and think, wow, why does this feel so similar to what we're going through now, or to what we're feeling now, or to what we might be seeing happening around us? It's crazy, but I think it's amazing that this show does such an amazing job of touching on those modern subjects, and head on. By the way, I feel like Elena has done such a tasteful job in addressing these topics through this show, Dickinson, that is fun and weird and interesting, but real and emotional. It touches on a lot.
Yes, on season 2, we have the addition of Finn Jones. He plays Sam. Can you talk a little bit about their relationship, like between both characters, and Sam, and how it's like work with Finn?
Working with Finn was such a dream. He was so fun. I have such a huge admiration for these actors that come into this show, come into this foundation that has been built. I just think it's so amazing that people can come into something and just claim their space and do their job and do it to the best of their ability. It's not an easy thing to do. You're jumping on a moving train, and Finn just came right in, and he was cast very last minute, and all of it happened. It just felt like such a whirlwind, but he came in and he was so clear on what he was doing and what he was bringing to this role as Sam Bowles. And he had such an intrigue about him and a mystery to him personally, and he brought that in through through the character. And Sam to Emily represents just that, this mystery and this intrigue that she can't quite figure out, and she is determined to do so. And she loves this idea of him and this idea of fame that he can bring her, and whether or not the intentions are all pure between Sam and between Sue and Sam and Sue and Emily. There is quite the triangle that that develops between the three of them, and it's a messy one, but yeah, I loved playing through some of those scenes with Finn. They're some of my favorite scenes in the season.
So that's actually a perfect lead into what my question is going to be. I absolutely love the relationship dynamics on this show. And I feel like your character obviously has the most with pretty much everyone. You have the relationship with Emily and Sue. You have the relationship with Sam and Emily, the father-daughter relationship we talked to. So my question for you is, which is the most enjoyable one to explore and why?
Wow. Well, I would say the Sue and Emily relationship to me is probably the most fun. There's something so special about that relationship that I've never gotten to play in anything else that I've done. But I will say, and I'll touch on that more, but having somebody like Finn Jones come in and play a character that we've never seen on Dickinson, that's also very fun to have that. And much like I was saying, how cool it is to watch an actor come in out of nowhere and just make themselves a part of our show. It's so fun to be so ingrained in this show and then have somebody come out of nowhere and rock your world a little bit. And that's what Finn did as Sam. But the Emily and Sue relationship it's hard to put my finger on it. Like I said, it's unlike anything I've ever played through on screen before. Elena wrote such a beautiful, tragic love story between these two young women. And to watch it unfold as now a fan of this show, as a fan of these two humans, these two characters, to see and feel through these characters what it means to be understood and what it means to be heard and feel seen. That's what this show is ultimately. I feel it's all about being seen. Emily goes down this wild, this spiral. Do I want fame? Do I want this attention? Do I want all of these people, and their opinions? No, I just want you. The love that she has for this one human overrides everything at the end of the day. And that remains.
I want to ask about Henry and what lessons Emily learns from him across both seasons. We saw him in the scene with Othello and mentioning her privilege, and also him stating who wouldn't want to be published. So can you just tell us a little bit about that and why his character was important to her evolution?
Remind me, so we saw him.
In the Shakespeare scene where they were performing Othello, and he
oh my God, yes. Oh my goodness, well, wait until you see what it's so funny thinking back about through season 1 and 2 and being in 3. It's all such a blur and whirlwind to me, but oh my God, I don't know whether I should start with Chinaza himself or with Henry. But what a beautiful relationship that Emily has with Henry. And that moment that you mentioned when he looks at her and says, who wouldn't want to be published, is such a huge moment of realization for Emily, that she realizes that there's a world in which people don't even have the option or the choice to think about it, let alone have it be done. Emily is in a place where if she does it, her father will, who knows what he'll do. He'll be very upset, but she can still do it. And she'll still be alive, right? And she'll be able to do it under another name, or there are ways around it for her. But when she realizes that there is someone like Henry who is running this whole underground operation, that if only it could see the light of day, it would change his world. It would change our world, their world then. And she is able to see so much through Henry. She's able to, her whole perception of life changes because of Henry. Her whole outlook on the world changes because of Henry. And I will say again, in speaking about Chinaza himself, he is one of the most generous people I think I've ever worked with. And I cannot wait until you guys see what he does in season 3.
All right. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have. But to close things out, Hailee, I want to ask you one final question. And again, thank you so much for participating. We loved having you, and you're always welcome to come back. And we have a lot of questions still left. So if you want to come back for part 2, we're here.
I'd love that. Thank you.
No problem. So you and Ella Hunt, both incredible singers. And with that, has there been any discussion about a possible musical episode in the future?
Yes, there has. In fact, thank you for that compliment. I agree as far as Ella goes, and there are other cast members of this show that happen to be incredible singers. So it would be insane for us not to take advantage of that. And there is maybe a possibility it happens, or it's gonna happen. But it's definitely been talked about.
Thank you so much, Hailee, for joining us today. You're welcome back anytime. We hope that you have lots of luck this entire award season.
Thank you, Scott. Thanks, everyone.